Hello, you stunningly gorgeous people of the internet. It is I, Anna, and I am back with volume 2 of These Books Are Literally, and then I talk about a season. Last season, I talked about books in the winter, and that was pretty successful, so I'm coming back with spring books. Now, there's only 4 seasons, and I feel like 3 of these seasons have incredibly definable books. Winter books, easy. Fall books, easy. Summer books, a walk in the park. Spring books, a little bit more difficult. So in order to get these books, I had to kind of think about what spring means to me. For me, spring means kind of like a rebirthing, a little introduction of vibrancy into your life. You're shedding this hibernation mask and clothes that you've had on for winter, and now you're becoming this pure version of yourself. So I picked out some books that represent that to me. It's very easy to get into the summer feeling of books, right? Immediately you hit winter and then you feel like you're into summer. That's the next part of becoming lively again, but you have to remember about spring. So let's talk about the books that feel like spring to moi. Now, the first book that I want to talk about is kind of piggybacking off of a book that I am currently reading, Pedro Paramo by Juan Rulfo. I'm reading this for my book club on Patreon. I know I keep talking about it, but this book feels very pertinent for a lot of different situations. This book, since I'm not finished with it yet, I'm not going to put it on the list, but this was the catalyst for picking the first book on the list. That is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Now, Let's think about why this book is on here. This book is all a multi-generational family saga about a family birthing themselves into a nation. It's incredibly magically realistic. It feels like it is a story that you can kind of develop in your own mind as it goes. There's really no solid foundation for exactly how you should interpret this. It's all your own individual story. The reason that I bring up Juan Rulfo is because Marquez wrote a foreword, a brilliant foreword, and I was talking about it in my book club, about how this book created this book, essentially. There's these influx of seasons, but it really doesn't matter about the season. It's all about the feeling of the moment. And spring is a feeling. I made a video, a very experimental video about what this book felt like to me. It's probably one of my proudest videos that I've made. It's all visuals and it's all sound, and I'll have it up here, I'm sure. That to me is a perfect representation of what spring is. You are becoming something. You've had the whole winter to remain dormant, and now you are springing out. I didn't even mean to use the word. You're springing out into something else. And that is essentially what this book feels like to me. This book is a mastery of creating your own vision in a world that feels like it's been fully lived in, but there's so much opportunity for you to create your own space within it. Fabulous, one of my favorite books. I love this. And this does feel like spring. Also could feel like summer. You know, but these are spring books. The next book that I want to talk about is a book that I'm not like so in love with, but I feel like is a great representation of spring, and that is Pure Color by Sheila H. I listened to this on audiobook, and I believe that the author read it herself. This is a smorgasbord of emotions. This is a smorgasbord of visuals. This is a smorgasbord of just about everything. This is essentially a reworking of how people, places, and things are developed. It follows one main girl, and she is kind of rebirthed again as a leaf. What a perfect visual for spring. Leaves, things are blooming, you are becoming something. This book to me is such a sensory experience. There's really no linear narrative to this. Again, just vibes, just feelings. Pure Color feels like spring. It feels like kind of you're turning a key and a door is open, and you're able to explore a realm that doesn't feel like there's a concreteness to it. Is that spring? I think so. I'm ripping through these books right now, and that is a-okay. The next book that I want to talk about is a book that I always try to introduce nonfiction into these videos because I feel like a lot of it's fiction. It's so easy to designate a fiction book as a feeling. of a season, but I feel like there's so many nonfictions that can relate to certain seasons as well, or things that they're exploring. And for me, the book that I'm choosing is A Philosophy of Walking by Friedrich Gro. I have to say the name, I'm sorry. This book I think about all the time. And not because it was a favorite book of mine, not because it was a life-changing novel, but just because I think the concept of it is so brilliant and unique. This is all about philosophers and the impact of walking in their day-to-day lives. You have a lot of the kind of big players in philosophy. You have Nietzsche, you have Rimbaud, and then of course you have kind of like the godfather of solace and walking and exploring nature, which is Thoreau. But then Gross just goes into the beauty of having these moments in nature, or just any sort of walk, like the impact of walking and how it kind of bonded people in civilization. Oh, wouldn't you know it, my microphone just died on me at this exact moment. Isn't that stunning and fun for the whole family? I was making a huge testimony about how walking feels like the perfect way to introduce spring, how it's not that harsh on the body as your body's waking up. It was a whole stunning revelation. I was really proud of it, and my microphone died. Whatever, that's totally fine. Obviously, I'm healed. Anyway, I was also going to start to talk about how there's a couple of other nonfiction, like outdoor books, like A Walk in the Woods. So this is what happened. Cry with me. In the Woods by Bill Bryson, which again I feel like is a little bit more summer, but this I feel like is peak spring, just kind of awakening that body. And I was looking through this before I was filming, and I had marked a couple of things, and I was looking at one passage that I marked, and it's kind of perfect. And it goes, "You think after a few days, months, or years, it's really been too long since I went there last. It's expecting me. I should go there on foot. And slowly the road, the feel of the ground underfoot, the shape of the hills, the height of the trees, all come back to you. They are acquaintances." Now, if that isn't a sign for rebirth, I don't know what it is. I don't know what is. So the next book that I want to talk about is a book that I really didn't like. But you know what? I have to understand that sometimes my opinion isn't the perfect opinion. Yes, it is. But no, sometimes I have to step back and realize that there are people who have totally different ideas of what is satisfying and amazing. So I have to talk about books that I didn't necessarily love, but other people might. And this is a strongly revered book. This is a book that lots of people have loved. And I feel like this is a really nice way to introduce happiness in our lives, spring, some sunshine, warmer weather, and that is The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. Another nonfiction, actually. What makes this book unique is that Gay created this prompt for himself to write something in his journal that he was thankful for, that he saw as a delightful kind of experience, and it led to so many different interpretations of what that meant. And while there are moments of this book that I think get a little less kind of chipper than I would want when I'm reading a book called The Book of Delights, it's a very realistic look into kind of what forms you and what you see as a positive thing or as a growing sort of thing in your life. I think that this is something that is a great book to kind of read while you're sitting on your back porch, or, you know, thinking about planning out your garden, or, you know, walking barefoot somewhere. And that is what spring feels like to me. It feels like it's impactful for those moments. And the last little section that I want to talk about is poetry. I feel like spring is a great time to read poetry. Maybe you're coming out of an incredibly ambitious winter reading and you want to kind of change and shift your perspective for what you want to be reading in the springtime. And I feel like poetry is a really nice way to get into that. I don't read a lot of poetry. I read Frost, but that's definitely fall, kind of winter to me, even though he has a lot of spring poems. But the one that I would, well, this isn't really poetry, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, but it kind of reads like poetry. It's very poetic, and that is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. This book, people loved it. This is a very realistic look into a first love and looking at your identity, how you want to live the rest of your life, who you are, and what's spring if not becoming, you know? This book, I mean, again, this wasn't like a love for me, but the writing is so floral. The writing is so just weaving throughout so many different themes and emotions. And I think that there is something to be said about books and writing that is just naturally ornamental, that makes it feel like it's spring and it's easy and you want to sink into it. Yeah, that's not poetry, is it? But that's fine. This is my own list. I don't care. Anyway, you guys, that was a quick little video. I had a great time doing it. I hope that you had a wonderful time. Hopefully I can do these videos every time that I'm in my parents' house, because, you know, somehow every section of this room feels like it could be a season. This is the season room. And right now as I'm filming, the sun is just starting to come in. It's been dark all day. And that's spring. That's spring coming through. Anyway, you guys are wonderful. You're fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one. My hair, I look like I am the lead in a 80s rock band. And that's who I'm rebirthing myself as this season.